Well, welcome to the Maldives. We're right now on a Crystal cruise line ship. We started in Mumbai and we ended up going to Goa, Sri Lanka, and now we're here. And we were super excited to come to the Maldives because it's a place that most people dream about going. It's hard to get to from the United States or Canada because it is basically on the other side of the world. And due to that, it's very expensive to get here. It takes a long time, and it is very expensive just to be here. So we thought we'd just kind of do a drive-by on a cruise ship. And yesterday morning, I started to do a little bit of research on all about the Maldives. I'm trying to learn because I try to do that before I go to shore. And of course, this paradise that you're seeing here actually isn't much of a paradise because we're not on a fancy island with the sand and the palm trees and the thing you see the typical video or Instagrammer do of the Maldives. What you're seeing is that's the airport behind me, and our ship is moored here. And we made the decision yesterday to not get off the ship. Now you might be thinking, why? You're crazy. You're in the Maldives. Get off the ship. Well, we couldn't. Our conscience wouldn't let us. Because when we started to do the research on the Maldives, we discovered a very, very dark side of the Maldives. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I generally try to have my videos a little more upbeat and about, cool things we're seeing or religious sites in Israel and all kinds of fun things. But today is going to be, it's a difficult video day. And but it has to be told. Most people we've talked to on this ship, including ourselves, I kind of thought that this was a Islamic kind of country, but there's lots of countries that are. Turkey's Islamic, and we don't have any issues going there. So we started to do a bunch of research and realized that this is a totalitarian regime. This regime is basically a dictator, and they had a dictator for about 30 years here, and they had a big tsunami in 2004, and it killed a lot of people. Of course, this is basically on these islands here. There's like 1,200 islands here, and they're basically flat. It's like being out in the Caribbean in some islands in the Bahamas. You have a tsunami, you're done. It's going over the entire land, and they did. And Saudi Arabia came to the rescue. But what Saudi Arabia did was they wanted to push the Sunni Islam, and they built mosques and they did all kinds of things to. I think they did a lot of things with some hinges attached, hooks attached, and they ended up with a very, very totalitarian Islamic regime here. And for us, what we do is on a great deal of what we look at on the countries we know, because as most of you know, we travel all over the world, and we have really only one basic rule, and that is, how does the country treat women? Because how a country treats women basically tells you who they are to the core. Because I believe that women are special, that they have so many things that God created that they do that I can't do. And just because I'm physically stronger doesn't mean that I should be taking advantage of women. And I look to them, to my wife as my equal, and we work on things together. We both have our own talents. We're both better at certain things, and together we're very powerful, but we're equal. And we know that some cultures that we go to, that's not quite like that, but it's not that bad. This one is extremely bad. I can't describe this country any closer. If I was to compare it to a country, that you would maybe understand. It would be the Taliban. We have a Taliban government, basically, an Islamist extremist government that has the Sharia law laced into their constitution. A couple things to note here, and I'm going to start talking about the hotels and things, but a couple things to note here is that their government, this is an Islamic regime. This is like Iran. And they do have a president, but that president basically removed the first elected president after 30 years, back in, I think, 08 or somewhere around there. Finally they had elections basically because they were under pressure from the international community. And of course the opposition won and ended a 30-year dictator. After 4 years, between the people inside the government and the clerics and the religious leaders and the military, which is basically their police, they ousted this guy because he was trying to make reforms to add more freedoms. And I'm going to go over what the people endure here. But so who gets appointed? Just appointed is the son, the brother, the half brother of the old dictator, and now he's the new dictator, and they basically are they have complete 100% control over their citizens. So the Maldives government has done a really superior job making and wrapping up the Maldives as this paradise. They pay for influencers. They have their own tourism organization that pushes it out. They're ranked number 1 tourist destination for the last like 5 or 6 years. And it's all a facade. It's all basically islands. There's no hotels on the mainland. There's no hotels on this island where the airport is, or the mainland, which is over to your right, where there's 200,000 people that live in 9 square miles. It's one of the most densely populated places on the planet. But all the hotels here are located on individual islands. And those islands are special zones that the government sets up, that many of the laws that apply to the citizens of Maldives do not apply there, like eating pork, small one, kissing in public, any actions of affection, a woman showing her hair, a woman showing any part of her body other than her face, having a drink of alcohol, having a beer, having a glass of wine. Those are things that are allowed on those islands. And the people that are actually serving you on those islands cannot do any of that. It's illegal for them to do it. This country is 100% Muslim. Like 100%, because in your constitution, you have to be Muslim to be a citizen. So, what happens if you choose not to be Muslim? No one ever does, very few. Well, under the constitution, you lose your citizenship, and you're now stateless. And you're likely exiled. Worse than that, your family's kicked you out, and no one wants to have anything to do with you. So you're either Muslim, or you have to flee the island, the country. This is your paradise. This is how these people have to live. There was a gay person, the first Maldives gay blogger, a decade or so ago, walked out of his house and someone came with a box cutter and slit his throat. He made it to the hospital, had a 1% chance of living, and he and he made it through. And then he was exiled to Sri Lanka. This is your paradise. And this is why Jennifer and I chose not to get off this ship. And I'm not going to promote a country that treats their people like this. Because it's a totalitarian regime, and they use Islam and Islam Sharia law to run everything, they have total control of all the people in this country. And if you do anything wrong, you're stealing, your hand will be cut off. Fornication, adultery, things of that nature. 100 lashes. It wasn't too many years ago, there was 183 people convicted to 100 lashings. 3/4 of them were women. And these were lashings that were based on some sort of what they call a sexual infidelity. Of course, the men walk away, most cases. There's a few exceptions. But when you have a ratio of 75-25%, you know that basically the woman gets convicted because she probably got pregnant out of wedlock. And the man denies he had sex with her. He walks. The evidence is clear that she had infidelity, and she gets flogged. Now, typically, they'll wait until the baby's born, and then they'll flog her 100 times. And they'll say in the news that, well, they didn't flog her that hard. By law, they can only raise their hand up to the shoulder high instead of further back. It's flogging, and it's demoralizing. And if you get raped as a woman in this country, you're flogged because you got pregnant out of wedlock. You're flogged, and you were raped. And many of these are children. It'll happen when they're 16, 15, 17, and they'll wait till they're 18 and then flog them. This is your paradise of the Maldives. You basically have the hotel system that is in the outer islands, and they're all in little regulatory bubbles. And then you come to the mainland after you finished work, or sometimes you might go work a week on, week off, kind of a few days on, few days off. You come back and immediately have to put all the headdresses on. You, as a woman, you immediately have to cover up, you immediately have to fall with all these rules. Yet the people you're serving in the hotels have no idea how you're oppressed. And they can't talk about it, because if they do, they lose their job, and they won't get a work permit, because they got to get a work permit from the government to go work at that Ritz-Carlton restaurant, hotel, or that W hotel, or that Marriott hotel, or that Four Seasons hotel, which, by the way, they all know what's going on, and they're partaking in this. These hotels are 100% totally designed for two things. One, for companies to make profit. Marriott, and, Hilton, they're all out here. And two, so that the regime can get their money. And the regime actually, this country, 20% of their GDP comes from tourism, and that's just that. And it is the number one contributor for foreign currency in this country. So it gives the regime power. Without that money, they would not have any power, and they would crumble. Even worse, the money that they do take, much of it is siphoned off and stolen by the president, stolen by some of the other officials, because they get a contract to work to build at one of the hotels or provide services, or the airport services, or whatever it might be. They're siphoning off money, and it's going offshore. They're stealing from the the people of the Maldives, and they're suppressing them. I kind of look at it like this. If you were going to buy a car and you knew that the owner of the car dealership constantly beats his wife, would you buy a car from that car dealership? I don't think you would. In fact, everyone would be complaining about it. It would be in the local news, it'd be in the newspaper, it would be all over social media. This guy's beating his wife. No one would go to his car dealership, and he would probably have to either sell it or shut down. Not in the Maldives. In the Maldives, people in the West continue to come here and fund the very person that's beating up their citizens. So you have to start asking yourself, when you travel, and this is something we had to do, can I go to some of these places when they treat their citizens the way they do? Now you can justify it somehow, and I'm not condoning anyone, but for my wife and I, we will not give this country a cent. We actually had excursions lined up that we just canceled. We lost the money because out of principle we could not support a dictator Islamic regime that's using Islam for its power. And it's so bad. I've never been to a country like this bad, because I won't go to, like, say, Afghanistan, but it's no different than here. Here's the same. Another difficult topic when it comes to this country, and other countries as well that are Islamic based, is female genital mutilation. FGM. And FGM is very prevalent here. A lot of people just think, oh, that's just Africa, that's just Somalia, that's just some of the parts of Nigeria, parts of Sudan. No. It is right here in the Maldives. And not every woman has it, but an estimated 30%, 38% of all women have had female genital mutilation. And I'm not going to go into what that is. You can look it up if you don't know what it is, but it is basically like castrating a woman. And it is horrific. And medical doctors do it here. So the same medical doctor that might be treating you if you're sick in one of the hotels may have done this to a very, very young girl. Because they typically do it from the ages of 0 to 5 years old. 0 to 5 years old. Can you imagine doing that? And your beautiful Maldives, there's the boats going by. This is what they're about. I'm doing this video so that people know. And it is not against the law to do FGM in this country. There's no law against it. So it happens. It doesn't happen to 100% of the women, and not even close, but it happens to thousands and thousands of young girls. And so when you're at next time you're here at the Maldives, if you come back after this video, and you're at the hotel, just know that probably at least two out of 10 people, the women that are serving you and cleaning your rooms, have been mutilated. And that's a reality here. And it's something you have to think hard about. And again, it's one of those things that are not fair to women, that are abuse to women, that Jennifer and I absolutely will not support a regime like this that allows that to happen. So in addition to the public floggings that I told you about for sexual infidelity, there's also for adultery, which is a more serious crime, because the other one was really based on fornication. For adultery, stoning is still on the books as something legal to do. Stoning. So you thought that was only Afghanistan and some of these other maybe extreme. It's right here in the Maldives, your beautiful Maldives. Stoning is still part of the legal system. So if any of this happens to you as a woman, you immediately lose custody of your children. They go to the father. You have no rights as a woman here when it comes to divorce, or that he decides to leave you for whatever reason, or you decide to go into exile to get out of this hellhole that you live in. You lose your children. They're gone. Also, throughout the streets in this city, they have vigilante groups that are there to enforce Sharia law. So if they find a woman that is showing a little bit of ankle, or her hair is not covered correctly, they have canes and they go hit them with canes. And you know, the crazy thing in this country is that you fly in here, you land at this beautiful airport, you never go into the city. You never see any of this. What you do see is this beautiful airport, and then you get out of the airport, and you either get on a ferry boat if you're going to one of the closer islands, or you're getting on a seaplane. And the seaplanes, that's how they take, for most of the islands, they have a massive seaplane base here. So you go from the airport to a seaplane to the hotel that's isolated, that they can completely control the bubble and the experience, so that you don't see how the Maldives actually operates. And then when you leave, you do that in reverse, and then you get on a plane and you leave, and you never walk through the streets and see the poverty and see what people really look like, and see how women are treated. You won't see any of that. What you're seeing is it's like a play. It's not real. You're seeing people, men and women, going to work, treating you like you're a king, in a resort that costs $2,000 up to $30,000 a night. The food, the beaches, everything is absolutely perfect, except their lives, except the very ones that are serving you, particularly the women. Their lives are only of oppression. You're not allowed to go against the government here. If you are, you're imprisoned. And so kind of let all this sink in. It's a lot. It's kind of a negative thing, but once I learned about this, I just felt very passionate. I've got to post a video about this, because many of the people I've talked about in the ship, including myself, I had no idea that the Maldives, the government, and that it was an Islamic regime. I hadn't got a clue. I kind of knew it was Islam, but you know, there's a lot of wonderful places that are Islamic leading countries that are fine, that we go to all the time. But this one, this is a paradise version of the Taliban, and that's really all it is. So the next time you decide to come here, take this information. Try to make it a good decision for yourself and for what you stand for. Share this video. Let's get this out to the world, because most of the people on this ship are very educated. They're people of means, and they don't even know. I didn't know. People I meet in the ship, none of us know what the harsh realities were here. Like when you go over to the shore on the tender, and then to get on another boat to go somewhere else, because you really don't walk around the city at all. You don't hold hands. You don't it's like you're almost it's fearful. It's like it's not a normal environment that we with freedom actually have ever seen. So in the comments, I've put a video link to a very good video that talks about the realities in far more detail than I'm saying, and it's probably a little more professionally done, but it describes a lot of this in a lot more detail. There's a few statistics there that I think the editor exaggerated on. Like I think the FGM was, they said was 80%. It's really not. It's much lower than that. But I mean, any of it's bad. But there are a few exaggerations, but most of it's dead on. You get a really good history of the Maldives. How did they become Muslim? And they did it portrayed. They were Buddhist before. Of course, in the schools, the children here don't even know they were at one time. This was a Buddhist country. They're not allowed to teach that anymore. So all they know this country has always been Islamic, and that's all that's been allowed to taught. Even though there's archaeological sites here that prove it, none of it's taught in their schools, because it's about the 1200s when Islam kind of came here, and for the Maldivian, or for the Maldivians, I guess, to do trade, pretty much had to become Muslim, because Saudi Arabia is not far. There was a lot of the Muslim was a big movement back then by the 1200s, and so they chose to become Muslim. They didn't really become an Islamic regime until about 40, 50 years ago is when it really started to get bad. But for 1,000 years they were Buddhist, and all of a sudden they're Muslim. Now that's happened in probably 50, 60 other countries where Islam has colonized other countries that were at one time other religions. The tourism industry here is huge. It provided $5.4 billion to the economy here. That's how big it is for a country of only 500,000 people. So it is significant. It is why the government here has so much money to continue their control over the people. Oh, and we have one of the tenders coming back to our ship for some people that have spent a bunch of money on their excursions, and some of that going to the regime to lash more women. And I know that's a really harsh way of saying it, and it's not their fault, they don't know. But that's the reality. That's what's happening here with the dollars that are being spent. And it has to stop. The only way this is going to change, and these 500,000 people will have some liberation, is if we see through the bubble and we stop spending money here. Then things will change.